On the night of August 8th, 1963, a Royal Mail train was traveling from Glasgow to London. Inside one of its coaches were bags filled with cash, money that today would be worth around £67 million. The train driver, Jack Mills, was guiding the train through the darkness at high speed. Suddenly, a red signal light appeared ahead at a crossing. For the driver, this was unusual. A red signal at that place and time didn't make sense. Still, following protocol, Jack Mills applied the brakes and brought the train to a halt on the isolated track. For a brief moment, everything was silent. But behind that silence, a carefully planned operation was about to unfold. The greatest train robbery of the century. Welcome back to Knowledge TV. It sounds like something out of a movie, but this was real. A group of criminals carried out a highly calculated operation and looted millions from a government train without firing a single bullet. This story began months earlier when a group of experienced London criminals came together for a new plan. The mastermind behind it was Bruce Reynolds. He had received secret information about Britain's Royal Mail system, information that would change everything. According to this tip, a special coach on the Glasgow to London train carried high-value packages known as HVP. On a particular day, a large amount of cash would be transported, and that was their target. Although Reynolds and his team were seasoned criminals, they had no experience robbing trains. So they brought in another gang, the South Coast Raiders, who had experience with train robberies. The team grew to more than 15 members. Their goal was simple but ambitious: stop the train and rob it without violence. But this was no ordinary robbery. It required months of detailed planning. On August 7, 1963, at 6:50 in the evening, the Royal Mail train departed from Glasgow Central Station toward London. It was scheduled to arrive at Euston Station at 4 o'clock in the morning. The train had 12 coaches, along with 72 postal workers who sorted mail during the journey. This train didn't stop at stations in the usual way. Instead, as it passed through platforms, local postal staff would hang mail bags on special elevated hooks. Workers inside the moving train would collect these bags using nets, while also dropping off outgoing mail without stopping. This system allowed continuous distribution of mail across cities. The coach targeted for the robbery, the HVP coach, was not initially attached to the train. It was stationed securely at another location. This coach carried large amounts of cash as people used the postal system to send money across cities at the time. A few years earlier, security alarms had been introduced in some of these coaches to improve safety. However, older coaches without alarm systems were still kept as backup. On the day of the robbery, the coaches with security alarms were unavailable, so a reserve coach without any alarm system was used instead. This was a critical piece of information, leaked to the robbers by an insider. When the train reached the station where the HVP coach was waiting, it was attached just behind the engine. That was the first major advantage for the robbers. But the second was even bigger. Normally, such coaches carried around £300,000, but due to a recent bank holiday weekend, the amount on this train was nearly £3 million, 12 times more than usual. To the robbers, this wasn't luck. It was the result of careful planning. Late at night, the train continued its journey. 58-year-old Jack Mills remained focused on the track ahead. Meanwhile, the gang waited near a railway crossing, hidden in the bushes. Everything was set. Around 3 in the morning, the robbers put their plan into action. They tampered with the signal system. To block the green signal, they covered it and powered the red light using a battery. Then they hid and waited. As the train approached the crossing, the driver was surprised to see a red signal. This train was not supposed to stop here. Still, he followed the rules and brought the train to a stop. Silence returned once again. The assistant driver stepped down to contact the signal operator using the trackside telephone. But when he picked up the receiver, he discovered the line had been cut. At that moment, as he turned back toward the engine, the robbers emerged from the darkness and captured him. At the same time, others climbed onto the engine and tried to overpower the driver. When Jack Mills resisted, one of them struck him on the head with an iron rod. he collapsed in his seat. While this chaos unfolded at the front, another group detached the first two coaches from the rest of the train. Their plan was to move the engine and targeted coaches away from the scene. About a kilometer ahead was a bridge, Glasgow Bridge, where their truck was waiting. They had even brought along a retired train driver to move the train. So far, everything was going exactly as planned. But then, they faced an unexpected problem. The driver they had brought didn't understand the controls of this modern engine. He was unable to operate it, so the robbers forced Jack Mills, injured and barely conscious, to drive the train forward. The engine and two coaches slowly moved ahead. After about a kilometer, they stopped at Glasgow Bridge. Meanwhile, the staff and the remaining coaches had no idea what was happening. At the bridge, the robbers broke into the HVP coach. They tied up the postal workers inside and began unloading the cash. There were 128 sacks of money, each filled with notes, £1, £5, and 10 shillings. The total weight was around 2.5 tons. The train stood on the bridge, and a truck waited below. The robbers had only 15 minutes. Working quickly, they formed a human chain and passed the sacks down one by one. They managed to load 120 out of 128 sacks into the truck. 8 sacks were left behind due to time running out. The plan had worked almost perfectly, but one small mistake would eventually lead to their downfall. Before leaving, one robber warned the tied-up staff not to move for 30 minutes, or they would be killed. The gang escaped in their vehicles, a truck carrying the money and 2 Land Rovers with identical number plates to confuse witnesses. After about 45 minutes of driving, they reached their hideout near a rural village. It was early morning. They were listening to police communications on a radio, staying one step ahead. For a brief moment, they celebrated. They even played a game of Monopoly, using real stolen cash. But their celebration didn't last long. Soon they heard that the police had begun searching within a 50-kilometer radius. This estimate came from the statements of the train staff. The robbers panicked. They quickly divided the money among themselves. Each member received a massive share, an unimaginable amount at the time. Before leaving the hideout, they attempted to erase all fingerprints. One man was assigned to burn the location to destroy evidence, but he took the money and fled without completing the task. Meanwhile, police launched a massive search operation across the region. Helicopters flew overhead, patrol cars covered every road, and the media spread the news nationwide. A reward was announced for any useful information. Soon, a nearby resident reported suspicious activity at a farmhouse. Police immediately raided the location. Inside, they found crucial evidence: empty sacks, mailbags, and a truck that had been hastily repainted. Although most fingerprints had been wiped, some remained. On the Monopoly set, those fingerprints became the key breakthrough. Since many of the suspects already had criminal records, police were able to match them quickly. Within days, 14 of the 16 gang members were arrested. Only 2 managed to escape, including the mysterious insider who had provided the information. His identity remains unknown to this day. The court declared this robbery one of the biggest in history. Most of the gang members were sentenced to 30 years in prison. Glasgow Bridge later became known as the Train Robbers Bridge. As for Jack Mills, the driver who was attacked, he never fully recovered from his injuries. He was unable to return to work and passed away a few years later. If this story amazed you, don't forget to like and share. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. See you in the next video.